Hello there Minerva makers, it is Jo. I hope you are well, and today I'm here to show you some of our border prints. We have a print that's exclusive to us and it's a border print, but it's quite a deep print, and maybe you see it on a swatch on our website and you're not sure what you're going to do with it, what you might pair it with, or how you're going to use a fabric with such differing colour shades. So I'm going to show you the fabric, some of the alternatives and some patterns that you can try. I've also made up a couple of samples so that you can see it in scale to a human body, and you can see me using it one way up and another way up. If you check out our border prints online and search down the feed, you'll see some people using them really successfully. There's a couple of examples here. So lots of people have used it in a very long line way, so they're using the border from the light shade all the way through to the dark shade. Some people are cutting the print, so they're mixing up where they want the print hem to finish and what colour they want on the top half. I've used mine to make a shorter dress, and that means you don't have to use all of the depth of the fabric border, but it still works as a fabulous graduated print. It's a really deep print. You can see it goes from the white all the way through to the darker tone on the bottom. You could incorporate that black hem, or you could finish a bit higher up on the fabric, or you could take the white out altogether and just use the busier part of the print. This one's slightly easier to use, the floral one, because you haven't got any animals on there that you need to do some pattern matching. And although the print is really wide on repeat, so you can see none of that is repeated. That's all one pattern section. It's not as hard to work with as you think, because it's so busy at the bottom. Then you can just incorporate those colours into your side seams without having to pattern match certain areas. So let's take a look at some of the patterns that we could use with this print, and then I'll show you a little bit of cutting out. If you're looking for a long line pattern, so some kind of maxi dress where you're using the border and the print design to its full potential, then you might want to look at the Tilly and the Buttons Sky dress. It's a really easy fit summer tie strap dress. You can make it shorter if you want, so you don't have to use all of the border print, but you can use it all the way down to the hem. This pattern is super easy to do and really easy to fit, because you can just adjust the ties on your shoulders to get a good fit around the arms. If you've got some other sewing skills, then you could try a button front. So this is the True Bias Southport dress. Again, you can have a full length of the border, and you can make that into a maxi dress. You can also make it shorter, and you can work here with that lighter colour on the top and darker colour on the bottom. Here's a great example of somebody who's done just that. If you prefer to make separates, then a wrap skirt is a really good idea, because you can get lots of layers of that print and you don't need to pattern match quite so much. So this is a Simplicity wrap skirt. Simplicity 1069 is really easy to make. There's no fastenings. It's lots of panels of skirts sewn together with a waist tie, and the waistband goes into the tie and through a little buttonhole that you make on the side. It's really easy and breezy and really great for summer wear, particularly good in our viscose challis. If you really love these border prints, but you think they might be a little bit much for wearing out and about, then you could use this fabric to make a robe or a dressing gown. You'd get a really nice on the back of your robe piece, the full pattern repeat, especially the ones with the little fish on the bottom or the ones with the cactuses around the hem. Robes are really easy to make. They tend to be very square pieces. They don't have a lot of curves to get under your machine, and most things are sewn on a straight line. So they're a really great pattern for beginners. These prints work really well in any kind of caftan design. So if you use #caftan on the Minerva website, or if you go to patterns and search for caftans, you'll get a really great range of loose fitting dresses where you can use the whole width and repeat of the pattern print. I like to use the Charlie caftan. I've used that a couple of times before. It's really simple to make. Just got that little bit of detail there that gives the sewing a little bit of interest. If you like to make tops, then you can check out some of the style art patterns. Some of those are very free and easy, very free flowing, especially around the hem. The style art top that I've chose is the Perry top. It's got that asymmetrical hem, so you can choose a particular part of the pattern that you like or a particular part of the print that you like and keep that on that longer hip side. I think that would make a really fabulous flowing top, again in our viscose challis. If you like to sew from a big 4 pattern, then Simplicity 8924 is also a great top for showing off this border print. I hope that some of those patterns there that I've shown you will inspire you to take a look at our border prints. There's 3 really great designs. There's a floral one, a sort of prairie one, and a sort of under the water sea one that has more blue tones. The pattern that I chose to use today is the Sew Over It Ultimate Shift Dress. It's a simple shift dress. The picture on the front looks really, really plain. But then I think that really lends itself to really busy fabrics. The only thing interrupting the front of your dress are the darts, and you can even place those in a particular part of the print where it doesn't interrupt the design. I've made the dress and I've also made a top, and I'm going to show you how I've used the print. First of all, I'd like to show you how to cut out a border print. It's not as tricky as you think. It's just a few little things to note that you might find useful if you have this fabric. Okay, here is the print in all its glory. I have pressed it because viscose challis is a bit shifty, and if you press it, it's sort of static, sticks together a little bit. So I've pressed it on the fold. So this is my fold line here. And I've chosen this area to be the centre front of my dress because it's got this sort of nice red motif. It goes up into a pale green motif, and I want the front of my dress to have the start of the pattern going down into this darker area. Now it does go to a completely black area, and if I wanted my hemline to be completely black because I wanted to incorporate that, maybe I'm wearing black shoes or black jacket or something, then I would move my pattern down and compromise and not have any white. I wouldn't have the tops of these. So that's what you've got to do with these border prints. You've got to decide how you're going to use them. They are directional, and border prints often are directional. So you can't really turn it around and have the pattern across your shoulders because your pattern would be upside down. Sometimes with a border print, not the Minerva ones, but other border prints, sometimes it doesn't matter if you have the darker bit on your shoulders and you run down to the lighter area or the plain area. This one happens to be directional, so we need our pattern pieces to go this way. As mentioned in the intro, I'm going to make the Sew Over It Ultimate Dress. I think that's a great pattern to use with this fabric because there's not many cut lines. There's only the darts at the side that will interrupt the flow of the print. I'm going to allow 1.5 centimetres at the neckline, so that will be where I'm sewing my facing on. So I want to make sure that this limey green bit doesn't get cut off. And I'm placing my front piece on the fold. And the back piece doesn't need to cut on the fold, so it can go slap next door. I can also take a look at where the pieces are matching up, so I can use the hip notch and see that around the hip notch it's a sort of green area. So I can try and look for a green area for that to land in so that it doesn't clash too much. I can look at my side waist notch. So I've got a pink flower there, I've got a red flower there, so I've got some similar colours. If I don't want to cut this red flower in half, I can make sure that it stays whole. I'm going to have a seam line along this back seam, so what will I be interrupting there? This bit here, I can absorb 1.5 in there. I'll probably lose that little bit of pink pattern there, but I think The fabric is so busy that pattern matching would waste a lot of fabric, so I'm just looking for those sort of base colours to match in the different places. I'm going to pin these in place and then cut out. The bloom version of this fabric is slightly easier to pattern balance out because you've got the sort of busy brushstroke flowers. Our other versions, the one with the sea creatures on, you might want to check there that you're not cutting any creatures in half on your pattern, in which case you might need a little bit more fabric for your cutting, so you can allow for that when you purchase your fabric. The Sew Over It pattern has a waist mark and a hip mark, and because there's no other shaping, I've measured from my underarm to my waist and from my underarm to my hip, and those are landing in the right place. If they aren't, you can pinch out a fold and lengthen and shorten there. So this is the front piece. You can see already the kind of effect that you're going to get on your dress. I've got a really nice just plain grey patch there for the dart, so my dart will just be going into a plain fabric. And on the back, round my neck facing, is going to be white. And here we might want to take a look at how we place our sleeve piece. On the front we've just got white, so our sleeve piece can be from the sort of top end of the fabric. So once you've cut your front and your back out and you've got the overall balance of where you want the pattern pieces, then you can think about the other pattern pieces. Now I want to make sure that the facings that go around the neck, I use the white part of the fabric, because then behind there I won't get any pattern showing through. So I don't really want to see some busy print very faded around the neckline. So let's look at some of the other pattern pieces. Okay, this is the neck facing. This is the back neck facing. I've got enough there to cut those out, but I'm going to interface my piece of fabric because this is quite light and movable, and if you block fuse the piece that you're going to cut the facings out of, although you think, oh well, I'm wasting interfacing, then but actually you get a much more accurate cut because you're not trying to get a shifty piece of fabric to stick to a piece of interfacing. There are different facings depending on which view you make. So if you make view version 1 here or version 3, then you'll use these small interfacing pieces. If you're making the short sleeve version, then you'll use the larger interfacing pieces. But again, if you've got white around your neckline, you want to make sure that you're using the white end of the fabric as your larger interfacing piece. Now you can think about the sleeves. What do you want the sleeves to be? If you're using the little ruffle sleeves, you could just put little white ones on there, so you keep the top completely pale. Or you could take your frill piece from lower down and have another darker tone at the top so that you tie in the bottom and the top. I'm making the longer sleeved version, so I'll be looking for that same tone running down, so the whiter top going down, my cuffs will be this darker colour. Okay, before I decide the position of my sleeve, I just want to have a look at my sleeve piece. So on the front, on one side I've got nothing, just some of this pale grey, and on the right arm I have this leaf. So let's take a look. Here's my sleeve piece. If I put the sleeve, this is the back sleeve, so this fern here will be joining the back. But if I want to be totally sure that I'm incorporating as much of the whole pattern as possible, I can move my sleeve up a bit and make sure that this top bit is in a very plain piece. So all around this sleeve head here is plain. And we need to check the other side. Yep, hitting a little bit there. If you really want to be very accurate with your pattern cutting, then I suggest that you cut your sleeve pieces not on the fold, that you cut them exactly where you want them on the print. I'm happy for it to be just a pattern balance, just the lighter and darker tones in the places that I want them. Think about your sleeve finish. The Ultimate Shift dress is quite plain, just has a normal hem sleeve. If you want to add a ruffle, you can add a little bit more. If you want to add elastic, you might want to just give yourself a little bit more, so you've got a casing, and then your sleeve will billow over a little bit more if you've got an elastic cuff. If you want to shear your cuff, then you might want to take this wider so that you've got more fabric to absorb in a shearing detail cuff. So this is the Ultimate Shift dress. It means that you can hack it into lots of different shapes and lots of different combinations. So there we are. So that's what I'm going to get on the front, and that's what I'm going to get on the other front. So I'm going to have quite pale sleeves, quite different sleeves. That will be on the underarm, but my outer arm will be very grey, and my outer arm here will be very grey. But nothing will be interfering with the sleeve head. Okay, so I've got the sleeves, I've got my pale facings, and my front and back pieces. I'm going to mark all the notches, sew it up. We can see how that pattern works with the Ultimate Shift dress. With any fabric that you've got left over, even if you get little pieces like this, so this is off the top, I'm going to keep that, because if I make something else with this fabric, it might be that I need that to make facings or to use for a pocket lining, so that a pattern doesn't show through. Okay, so here's the top of the dress. You can see where that white facing was there, and I've saved some of that white for another time. I have actually sewn this facing down because where I was getting a little bit of a curl, I was getting an even solid white line here, so I've actually sewn that down. You can see my pattern placement here. I've got that red piece in the middle that I cut. The sleeves go down into that darker shape. I haven't got any interruption of the pattern around the sleeve heads. My hem doesn't go down to the complete black line of the fabric print, but it's got a line that doesn't look like the colour the flowers are cut off, and you can see the full motif here. On the side seams, it's really harmonious, no pattern matching. I just didn't want to cut into that flower, so that was the one I avoided in the cutting. Here, all nice and busy, kept that quite full. And there is a centre seam down the back. And this is the print used in a directional way. I did say that the pattern was directional and you can't use it the other way around, but I have made version 2 of the Sew Over It shift dress, and I've made it into a top, so you could make this into a full shift, but I have used the pattern the other way around. So you can see that red flower, the tall red flower that I had coming up my shift dress, I've just turned it the other way around and used the fabric in a different way, and you can see it looks like a sort of flower cascade. Now I know you can't do this with the other prints in this range, but I think with the floral one it can look really good. I've used little darker tones of some of my scrap pieces I used to cut the sleeves. I've made that harmonious match again on the side. Those are those ferns but hanging down. And I go down to the white print at the bottom, which is quite good if you want to move the focus to the top of your garment and make the bottom plain so that you get an eye drawn to the top. If you've made anything with this border print, or indeed any of the other 2 versions, then we would love to see it. We really want to see how people have used these fabrics, how they've placed their pattern pieces on the print, what patterns they've chosen, indeed whether they've used the whole range of the border, whether they've used the lighter part or the darker part as their main feature. If you'd like to make a free account with us, you can do that over at Minerva. Share your makes and inspire other Minerva makers. We would love to see anything that you've made. Even if you've not used this print, you can upload your projects. You can head over to our Minerva YouTube channel, or you can head over to Minerva to check out more tutorials. There are sew-alongs, educational ones, learn to sew ones, pattern pairings, little deep dives into new prints and new patterns. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you again soon.